Hello, and welcome to the symplr Education Series webcast. Today's webcast is titled Professional Development for Supply Chain Careers with Ms. Nicole Mansell-Williams. Today's webcast is sponsored by, next slide please, symplr Credentialing and Compliance for Healthcare. Today's speaker is Ms. Nicole. She is the Regional Director and National Account Executive for TRIOS. She also is an adjunct professor for UMUC. She is a past president of MASHMM, and she also is on the ARM Chapter Relations Committee. I'm sure many of you know her, and I'd like to turn it over to her now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I thank you all for joining me today. I am here to talk about how strengths can help you build a more productive team, and how you can identify derailers and learn how to work with them, as well as just improve employee engagement overall. So why should we focus on strengths? The more you focus on strengths, the more engaged your employees are. So great leadership starts with understanding not only your strengths, but those around you. And understanding what your strengths are and what your employees' strengths are will help you better coach to improve performance. Gallup says that teams that spend more time focusing on strengths are actually 12.5% more productive. So with that being said, I'm going to switch to a short video, and then we will continue.
There are some things that just come naturally to you, things that are second nature. These are your personal strengths, and are what makes you unique. They are what draw you towards certain interests, people, and situations. And they are behind your successes at work and in your personal life. Understanding your greatest talent is the first step toward a more productive, empowered life. When you get your Clifton Strengths Finder results, you'll notice that some talents are dominant, while others play a supporting role. Your dominant talents are key to your personal development. By fostering them, you will pave the way for greater fulfillment and achievement. And by considering how you're already using these talents, you can discover how you can cultivate them to be your best every single day. Everyone is different, and we all have a special set of talents and strengths to bring to our work, communities, and relationships. Use your Full 34 comprehensive report as a roadmap to discover, develop, and realize your true potential.
All right, so moving on to key research findings. The most effective leaders are always investing in their strengths. So it's one thing to know what your strengths are. It's another thing to continue working on those strengths to improve. The most effective leaders surround themselves with the right people and then work to maximize the potential. The most effective leaders also understand the needs of their followers. And employees who feel their boss focuses on their strengths report 67% engagement. And to me, that's huge. On the flip side, surveys show that employees who don't feel as though their boss focuses on their strengths are only reporting a 2% engagement with their position. So that's a huge difference. So if you spend your life trying to be good at everything, you will never be great at anything. And that's really the key theme here. We really want to focus on what's right with somebody versus what's wrong with them. And so I'm going to have you do a little exercise, and I'm going to trust that you're actually going to do it because I can't see you. And I want you to write your name 5 times with your non-dominant hand, and then 5 times with your dominant hand, and then think about the differences that you notice. If you're like me, then your non-dominant hand is awful. And that's really the point here. If we continue to work on that non-dominant strength, you're going to be spending all of your time and energy focusing on something that might get a little bit better, but it's never going to be as good as your dominant hand. Whereas if you take your dominant hand and you work to improve the handwriting in that hand, that will continue to make incremental improvements. So the point is, focus where your natural talent is, develop your strengths. It doesn't mean ignore those things that you're not good at, because let's face it, in the workforce and in life in general, you're always going to have to do things that you're not naturally good at, but it's part of your job description, or it's just something that has to be done. So we can't ignore it, but the point is to use your strengths to help you not only improve, but to also be more satisfied. So this is a sample question from the Gallup Strengths Finder, and there's, probably hundreds of strength identifiers out there. I know I have taken about 5 different ones in the course of my career thus far. They all try to get to the same point, and when I did this presentation at ARM a couple weeks ago, I had a question about one of them, and really it doesn't matter which strength identifier you're using. The goal here is to use something and then follow through with it, because if you are just giving, a 100-question assessment in the hiring process, but then never revisiting that person once you hire them and what growth needs they have and things like that, then it's really a useless effort. So for this question, we're going to choose which phrase you identify with most. And like most of these, I can look at all 5 of these answers and say, I could be any one of those at any given moment. So what the assessment wants you to do is think about what your position is on most days, and then answer it. And so there's a series of questions similar to this that you go through, and then at the end, it will identify, out of 34 themes, it will identify your top 5. You can pay additional money to find out all 34, but your top 5 are really the ones that dominate who you are and are the most productive strengths to focus on. And so the more you are aware of your strength themes, the more self-confident you become, and then self-confidence, of course, is going to lead to more engagement, willingness to go above and beyond what your job description says, a much more positive environment, and in the end, those plus a million other things can equate to increased income in your career. So as I mentioned, your top 5 is really what you want to focus on, because that's what's going to make you more productive. Back to that little test on your non-dominant and your dominant hand and the difference in what that makes. If you take your top 5 and you really focus on the improvement of those, that will lead to better development, better productivity, better engagement than if you were to take, let's say, the other 29 out of your 34 and work on those. I don't know about what your day is like, but I don't really have enough time in my day to focus on 34 themes. Let alone, the 29 that I'm not good at. So if I take the 5 that I'm good at and try to use those in my daily life, whether it's my work life, my personal life, volunteering for community causes, that's what really makes me as a person more productive. And it should also be the same for those of you on the phone as well. So just a little bit about my top 5. My strongest is learner. And as you know, a learner is somebody that has a great desire to learn, which is obvious, but the process more so than the outcome is more important. So they are excited by learning something new, diving into a new project, those types of things. Second to that is belief. So these people have certain core values that drive them. Then strategic, achiever, and responsibility. So the interesting thing, and we'll talk more about this later, but the interesting thing about strengths is that in a stressful situation, or when someone is, you know, put under the gun to meet a timeline, or put in a situation where they need to be defensive, that type of thing, these strengths turn into what I'm going to use today, for lack of a better term, derailers. So, for example, and any one of these can come out. So for me as a learner, when I'm not at my best, that quest to learn could mean, you know, I'm doing 100 different projects at once and not finishing any of them because I just want to learn. Or, for example, responsibility, and this happens to me all the time in my personal life, is I just don't say no to anybody. You know, Nicole, can you do this? And I'm always like, sure. Nicole, can you volunteer here? Sure. And so that is my derailer. So looking at these top 34 themes, what do you think your top 5 would be? I will say that Gallup has learned out of 2 million or so assessments that have been done that no two people have the same top 5 in the same order, which is really fascinating to me. And of the 5 that are in my top 5, 4 of those are the most common in the people that take this assessment. So you can look at these, and I've alphabetized them, and just take a minute and think about, you know, where you think you would be, where some of the people on your team might be, and what that looks like for you. And so again, it's not that you should stop trying to improve or do better in the areas that aren't your biggest strengths, but it will take way more resources, time, money, energy to focus on the things that don't come naturally to you than to focus in an area of improvement that is already evident. And you could, you know, there's so many things that you could relate that to. You could look at professional athletes. I mean, we could look at the Olympics. You know, would it be a better use of time to shave off 2 seconds from Michael Phelps' 200 fly? Or would it be a better use of time to teach him how to double vault in gymnastics? So that's a pretty extreme example, but hopefully you get the. So leadership differs based upon individual talents and limitations. And where we get into leadership problems and challenges is when we think as leaders that we need to be exactly like someone else. This is one of my favorite quotes. I use it with my children probably almost daily. Be yourself because everyone else is already taken. And if you think about it, it's a pretty amazing idea. Yes, we're all unique, which means that we are going to lead uniquely. We're going to follow differently than another person would follow. We're going to have different needs than the person sitting next to us. And so as leaders, it's really important for the success of your department, your business, your company, depending on any level that you're looking at it, is that you adapt to the individuals that you are leading. So they feel like they are well connected. There is nothing worse, and I'm sure we've all been in this position at one point or another. There is nothing worse than, you know, being treated like you're just like somebody else, whether they're in your department or in another part of the building, because chances are you're probably not. And so those assumptions are what get us into trouble. And as employees, we want to feel like our leaders know us, not only on our job description level, but also on a personal level. That's what makes us feel more engaged. That's what makes us feel wanted in the organization. That's what makes us want to go the extra mile, to go above and beyond what's in the job description, to really not only excel in our own personal career, but to help the company or the organization grow, expand, and be successful. So maximizing your team. The Gallup studies show that 73%, we talked about 67, 70% earlier, so the numbers are all around in there, again, are engaged when an organization's leadership focuses on strengths. And the numbers show anywhere between 2 and 9% when employees feel like their strengths are not focused on. So the most cohesive and successful teams possess broader groups of strengths. And the most important takeaway when you're thinking about building teams or changing teams that you already have is an individual person does not need to be well-rounded in all of their themes. However, a team should be. So if you think back to my top 5, belief, learner, strategic, responsibility, achiever, you don't need to have 5 people on the team or the project committee that we're working on with those same strengths. Yes, 1 or 2 might overlap, but you're going to want to look at somebody maybe who's an influencer or somebody who has woo as one of their themes. And I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say there. So basically, you want to build your team around these domains of leadership, and there should be strengths represented in each of these areas. So the 4 domains of leadership are executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And I'm not going to read what each one says because I'm sure you could either read it yourself or just think about what each one means. So teams should have strengths represented from each of these domains. And you'll see here a sampling of the strengths that fit under executing. So if we revert back to what my top 5 are, 3 of my top 5 fall in the executing category. And so I'm pretty sure that if you asked my coworkers, they would probably agree that I tend to be an executor or get things done, is another way of putting it. You know, I'm one of those people that I'm a bad delegator. So instead of asking somebody to do something, I'm just going to go ahead and do it on my own because it would take me longer to explain what I need done than if I did it myself. So depending on how you view that or what the situation is, that could be a little bit of a derailer depending on, you know, what the environment is. So hopefully you're beginning to see how the strengths under certain scenarios or the not so positive scenarios could begin to become a derailer. And then you'll see that under strategic thinking, I'm also learner and strategic. So if I was building a team with me or looking for a partner to do something with, I'm going to look for people that have themes that fall under influencing and relationship building. And hopefully that makes sense. So, you know, depending on how big your team is, you know, I might look for just one other person that is influencing and relationship building, or I might look for a couple different people that encompass some of these themes, depending on what my needs are for that specific project. So with that being said, I want you to think about your style and perhaps the person you report to style, and ask yourself, do they exhibit any of these strengths? And if not, how can you use what you've learned so far and what you're going to continue to learn today and hopefully maybe after our call to draw them out of that person? And so based on your self-reflection, and obviously we're not going to answer these right now, but here's a couple things for you to think about. How do your individual ways of contributing align with the strengths of the team around you? Does your team utilize individual strengths to their potential? If so, how? And if not, how could you? Where are your team's strengths? Where might you run into some concerns? And so to help you look at your team, there are quite a few worksheets available online. I just pulled this off an image and it outlines each domain of leadership as well as the themes that fall under each of those domains. And then on the left-hand column, there's space for you to put in all the people on your team and then chart out where they fall. So it should, by the end, give you a good visual of where you have gaps in your teams, where your strengths are as a team, and where you might be able to fill in, your new hires or move some people around internally that could help you fill the gaps that exist. So we're not leaders unless people follow us. Because without anybody that wants to follow us, we're kind of just on our own, blazing our own path. So if you want to be a leader or you are a leader today, you have to know what's expected from you. So if you would think about someone you view as a leader and someone else that you personally would follow. They could be the same person, they might be different people, and then take a couple minutes and either jot down a few reasons why you would follow them, or maybe why not, maybe why they're not such a good mentor or role model, etc. And if you're a leader, maybe think about it in your own context. Why would your team want to follow you? So followers need to trust you and the company. So they need to feel like there's honest communication, that you've got integrity, that you're respectful. There needs to be compassion, and we talked about that earlier. They want to know that you care about them, and not that you just care about them because they sold $1 million account yesterday, or they signed a contract that saved $500,000, off your hospital's expenditures. They want to know that you care about them, how many kids they have, what they like to do on the weekend, what their hobbies are, things like that. They also want to know that you're stable and the company's stable. Having personally been in a situation where a company was not that stable, at least in my opinion, it was really uncomfortable on a day-to-day basis. Waking up and doing my job and wondering if I was even going to have a job tomorrow. So they need to know that they're secure, that there's support. They also need to have hope. Your employees need to know that there is a direction, that there's guidance, that there is a path for them to follow, to grow, to move within the organization. And so, of note, relationships actually trump, maybe I should say outweigh with the political environment today, competence in building trust. So, and I'll repeat that, your relationships outweigh competence in building trust within an organization. So you could have the most competent people in the world leading your team, but if they haven't built a good relationship with their employees, there's not going to be that trust factor in there. And trust is huge in a working environment. And nothing creates stability as quickly as transparency. And so transparency is a big word in healthcare today. We hear it everywhere with so many things. And so if you want your employees to feel stable, you need to be transparent with them. And transparent is going to mean different things to different organizations. But whatever it means to yours to be transparent, you should try to exemplify that. And then leaders who tend to be reactive instead of proactive convey to their team that they are not in control. And so that also creates an environment that's pretty unstable. So we want to be proactive as leaders. We want to spot when somebody is off or trending off their path for whatever reason. Maybe they're under stress because a project deadline is coming up and that strength that they had is now under attack. They might be feeling defeated, and so those derailer tendencies start to expose themselves. Well, if we spot them early on by being proactive, we can, pull them into the office and say, hey, I know this deadline is approaching, you seem stressed, how can I help? Or can I find somebody else to assist you with certain aspects of this project, et cetera, et cetera. And so leaders who initiate conversations, leaders who are proactive, create hope. Hope for the individual as a person and hope for the individual as, this is the right career for me. They're engaged. They're waking up every day and being excited about going to work. I watched a little video earlier, which was just hilarious. It was showing a guy that woke up on Monday morning and he was like doing jumping jacks all the way down the street to his job and, singing that he was so excited it was Monday because he gets to do his job that he does well. And so obviously it was a little exaggerated, but in the end, you want to feel good about what you're doing on a daily basis. And the company certainly wants to know that you're happy about where you are, because if you think about it, and if you're a hiring manager, it takes a lot of time, energy, and resources to hire somebody. And if that person doesn't work out, it's quite a bit of money down the drain. Now, on the flip side of that, you're learning it earlier on, and so you probably don't have so much invested in them. Had you found out about it a year or two later, it's much more costly. But at the same time, nobody wants to hire somebody and then have to turn around and get rid of them. So we want to be able to spot strengths early on, spot what could potentially send a person, off their ideal path, not only at the hiring stage, but then also continue to use that to keep them engaged and to keep them happy and to keep their career moving forward. Because what that's going to do is make them much more engaged with not only you as their leader, but also with the organization. Studies show that people don't leave companies per se, they leave their boss. And so if we could become better bosses and better leaders, hopefully in the end, there's less turnover and much more of a positive working environment. So with all of that being said, if you think about someone in your environment that could be considered a derailer, think about what behaviors are being exhibited that make you feel this way. So here's a few common leadership derailers: a lack of confidence, aloof, arrogant, closed-minded, eager to please, perfectionist. We've all come into contact with these people in one way, shape, or form, I'm sure, whether it's in your personal life or in your career, either with a coworker or someone who reports to you, or potentially, let's hope not, someone you report to. And again, these derailers are really a result of some strength that is under pressure for a given reason. Now, you know, I'm sure you're going to say, or you're thinking to yourself, there's people out there that are just really negative, nasty people, and those we're just going to leave out of the conversation. We're going to focus on, you know, somebody that you hired really for a reason, and they've got great strengths, and they are typically a productive member of your team, but for whatever reason are becoming disengaged. And so a couple more things to think about. You know, I look at a derailer as someone that's trying to sink the boat. So if you're a crew team, who is it on that boat that is trying to sink it? Studies show there's about 20% of your staff that's regularly not engaged. So in a crew, if you're in a 4-man boat, that's half your team, and that's kind of scary. If you've got a 10-man team, then potentially it's only 2 of them. So what are the benefits to identifying these derailers? And we talked about this earlier. The benefit is you can stop them in their tracks early on, and potentially get them back on the right track. Or you might find out, as you spot it early on, that this is not really where they want to be in their life, whether the position is not really for them, or the company's not really for them, they don't fit in with the culture, there's something going on in their personal life that they just can't commit to. Whatever the case may be, being proactive and spotting it early on lets you know whether, hey, I need to spend some more time with this person, or you know what, we need to figure out what to do with this person. So again, at any given time, about 20% of your employees are not engaged, and depending on how large your department or your organization is, it could be a bigger impact or not. And so where do you go from here? What I would say is, you know, definitely reflect, share this, practice it, build it. The most common cause of failed leadership is just flawed interpersonal behavior. So the behavior ends up hindering the ability to form and maintain a functional team. But if you think about the things that we talked about today, and you're using your strengths, and you're using the strengths of your employees to build productive teams, then your failure rate is going to be much lower than that of someone else. And so tying it all together, these are some drivers of engagement in the healthcare industry that I looked at. And they'll probably, you know, ring a bell with a lot of you. You know, leadership. Are they effective at growing the business? Do they show a sincere interest in employees' well-being? Do they behave consistently with the organization's values? Do they demonstrate trust and confidence in the job being done? Are stress levels at work manageable? Is there a healthy balance between work and personal life? Are you able to telework if needed? Do the employees understand the goals of the organization and how to reach them? It's one thing to have a goal. It's another thing to have a goal and to know how to achieve it. Because if you don't know the steps to achieve your goal, you might not ever make it to your goal. Do your employees know how their job contributes to the organization as a whole? Does your organization provide career advancement, whether it's career planning tools, resources, training? Do they reimburse tuition for someone to go above and beyond? Do they have opportunities for growth, development, and advancement? Do the managers treat staff with respect? Do they create an environment that encourages new ideas and ways of doing things? Or are they the kind of supervisor that says, well, this is the way we've always done it? That's not always the best way to approach it, especially when there's new people on the team, people that have had different experiences than you might have had or others on the team, and they have ideas that come from a different place. And so we want to create environments that encourages new ideas. Do your managers act in ways that are consistent with their words? Can they lead an effective career development conversation? Can you go to them, or can you sit down with your employee and say, hey, you know, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? And how are you going to get there? And how can I help you get there? So those are the kinds of conversations we need to be having, either with those that we supervise or with our own supervisors. You know, so this is what I said earlier. If you have a goal, write it down. If you don't write it down, you don't have a goal, you have a wish. So, and I've actually tried to implement this in my own life, you know, writing down the things that I want to accomplish instead of just wishing and leaving that out there, you know, in the sky and trying to grab at it. How exactly am I going to get there? And so if you're engaging your employees around behaviors and skills that not only drive clinical excellence, but also drive their personal excellence, it's going to create a much more positive experience, not only for you and for them, but also for the patients that walk into your door every day looking for care, and your patients' families. And all of those things put together in today's healthcare environment are going to determine whether a hospital thrives or even survives. Because as we move to an environment where value-based purchasing is important, and Medicaid is only reimbursing you know, based on your HCAP scores and things like that. I mean, really creating a positive environment within the hospital, not only for the patients and their families, but for your team and the entire hospital around you to actually work together, is really going to be key. Because if you're happier as an employee, that positivity is going to portray to everyone that's coming in the door. And will reflect in whatever quality scores and metrics and KPIs and things like that, that your hospital is tracking, that the federal government is tracking, and hopefully becomes a win-win for everyone. So some of the resources I used is StrengthsFinders 2.0. And that was written by Tom Rath. It's a Gallup publication. There's also Strengths-Based Leadership, which I read after that. And incidentally, released this year, there is a book called Strengths-Based Parenting. And that's really an interesting thing as well. So it really helps you learn how to strength spot in your children, as well as use your strengths and your child's strengths to work together to be more productive citizens, whether it's in school or at home, et cetera. And so if you think about it, if you're a parent, managing a household is a lot like managing a company sometimes, and getting everything to work together. So it's a neat book as well. And then some of the statistics came out of the Harvard Business Review. And that is it for my portion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we would like to move on to a commercial break from symplr. Oh, we may have skipped that slide.
I tried to, yeah, let me go back.
Yeah, we're going to
There we
speak
go.
to it as it relates to this topic.
Welcome. Thank you for looking at symplr for vendor and general credentialing.
Oh, it looks like our sound cut out. So why choose symplr? We can credential anyone and everyone. We have an easy-to-use interface, including a mobile app, and we also satisfy the Joint Commission and DNV surveys. We are the only company that can credential any and everyone that comes into your facility, whether it be contractors. Here are a few of our customers. Our solution is completely online. As you can see, we have credentialing specialists, the admin portal, and then there's also a user portal for our online interface. We are a software as a solution company, so you don't have to involve IT. Basically, we send you a link and you can download it. Also added is our patent pending symplr Pass check-in station. It is paired with our app. You can literally walk in, your vendor can select the appointment and scan their badge. This shows that process. So they'll come in, they'll upload their documents and check in, get a badge, and be good to go. This is the admin portal that you can see throughout. So you can see background checks, your licensing documents, and all of your documents when they expire and when you uploaded them. This is also the analytic dashboard where you can see all the stats, who has red lights, who doesn't. This is going to be a really short product demo that I'm not sure that I'm going to be able. Oh, here we go. You can just contact us at sales@symplr.com, or you can call us at 844-242-4977. Again, if this is something that you think can benefit your facility, please reach out to us at sales@symplr.com. So now it's time to move on to the Q&A. I haven't had any questions roll in yet, Ms. Nicole. Is there anything you would like to kind of say that you didn't really get to elaborate on while you were in the webcast doing your slides?
I don't think so. I did just get an email from somebody that had to jump off earlier and wanted a copy of the presentation. So that being said, if you have any questions or comments or just want to talk to me alone outside of this environment, you can reach me. The contact information is in the slides, but I'll give it to you again. My number is 443-890-4414. And my email is N as in Nancy, M as in Mary, A, Z as in zebra, Z as in zebra, EI Williams @gmail.com. And I am based out of Maryland, but I travel quite a bit for work. So if this is something that you think you'd like to learn more about, I'm certainly happy to talk with you. I thank you again for listening in, and I hope you found the information useful. And thank you to symplr for supporting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would like to tell everyone that we will be sending out the video archive of today's slides along with the slides for you to download here within a couple of days when we get them live on symplr. To ensure that you get that email, please add communications@symplr.com to your address book. Again, that is communications@symplr.com. And we will be sending out the archive of today's link along with the slide downloads that has Ms. Nicole's information. I think that about wraps it up today. So we would like to thank Ms. Nicole for presenting for us, and we would like to thank all of you for joining us. Please keep an eye out on our website for upcoming webcast announcements. We hope you all have a great day. Bye.